June, 53 BCE. The desert plains of Mesopotamia, near a town called Carrhae. Picture this. You're standing in the center of a Roman square. 40,000 men. Sand underfoot. Heat rising off the shields in waves. The enemy waits out in the shimmer. Maybe 10,000 of them. No siege engines. No infantry line. Just horsemen. Light riders with bows. And 1,000 armored cataphracts. You outnumber them 4-1. You command the finest heavy infantry the world has ever produced. Every man here knows the math. Lock shields. Stand firm. Wait out the arrows. Then advance and finish it. Across that plain rides Surena, young, a nobleman, the most gifted soldier in Parthia. And he has brought something nobody thinks will matter, a train of camels, loaded with spare arrows. By every rule of ancient warfare, this should be over before it begins. The richest man in Rome against a scouting party. Now watch what happens. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how those arrows never ran out, and how 20,000 Romans died on ground they were certain they'd win. To understand how 40,000 Romans ended up in the middle of a desert waiting to die, you need to understand the man who led them there. Marcus Licinius Crassus was 62 years old, the richest man in Rome. His name was synonymous with wealth. He had bought burning buildings during fires, rebuilt Rome block by block, owned silver mines, vast estates, and an army of slaves. But money was not enough. Because Crassus lived in the shadow of two younger men, Pompey, who had conquered the East, and Caesar, who was conquering Gaul. Both had glory. Both had legions that adored them. Crassus had crushed Spartacus, but that was a slave revolt. The Senate never let him forget it. So in 56 BC, at a meeting in Lucca, the three men made a deal. Caesar got Gaul, Pompey got Spain, and Crassus got Syria, a province that happened to border the richest empire in the East, Parthia. Cicero called it a war with no justification. Rome had a treaty with Parthia, but Crassus did not care. He saw the treasures of Babylon, the silks, the spices, the conquests that Pompey had already made look easy. He left Rome in November of 55 BC. Crowds lined the streets, not cheering, cursing. A tribune named Attius Capito stood at the city gate and performed a public ritual of execration, calling down the gods on Crassus as he passed. Bad omens piled up. Eagles refused to fly. Sacrificial animals showed deformed organs. None of it stopped him. Crassus crossed into the east with 7 legions, roughly 35,000 heavy infantry, 4,000 cavalry, 4,000 light troops. The largest army Rome had fielded in a generation. He was going to conquer Parthia. He was going to be remembered. But the Parthians were not like Rome's other enemies. They did not fight with walls of infantry. They did not stand and hold ground. They moved. They rode. They vanished. And Crassus's greatest weapon, the unstoppable Roman legionary, the man who locked shields and pushed forward, was about to walk into a trap designed specifically to break him. Parthia in 53 BC was already at war with itself. King Orodes II had been fighting his own brother for the throne. When Crassus arrived, Orodes was still cleaning up the mess. He could not afford a two-front campaign, so he split his forces. The main army marched north to punish Armenia, a Roman ally that had been wavering, and a much smaller force was sent south, 10,000 cavalry, under a young nobleman named Surena. Not to win, to delay, to harass, to keep Crassus busy while the real war was fought elsewhere. Surena was not even 30 years old, but he was already the most celebrated soldier in Parthia, brilliant, ruthless, and utterly confident in the weapon system he had spent his life mastering. The Parthian war machine was two things working as one: light horse archers, fast, swarming, able to shoot backward at full gallop, and cataphracts, heavy cavalry armored head to thigh in scale mail, carrying lances long enough to skewer a man through his shield. Together, they were a problem no Roman army had ever solved, and Crassus walked straight into the one place they were deadliest. While advancing through Mesopotamia, Crassus received a visitor. King Artavasdes of Armenia, a Roman ally, came with an offer. He would give Crassus 16,000 cavalry and 30,000 infantry, and he would guide him through the Armenian highlands, hills, valleys, broken ground where Parthian cavalry could not operate. One condition: march north, avoid the desert. Crassus listened, then he refused. Then a local chieftain named Ariamnes appeared in the Roman camp. He was charming, helpful. "Where are the Parthians?" Crassus asked. "Weak, scattered, afraid." Ariamnes pointed east, into the desert. That is the fastest route. What Crassus did not know was that Ariamnes was being paid by Surena. Every step the Romans took deeper into that plain was a step they would never take back. The land dried out. The Balik River fell behind them. Water became a memory. Sand stretched in every direction, flat, endless, perfect. And then, near a town called Carrhae, the scouts came running. The Parthians were ahead. Crassus's officers urged caution. Cassius Longinus, the lean, intelligent quaestor who would one day help kill Julius Caesar, argued for the standard formation: a long line, cavalry on the wings, flexibility. Crassus overruled him. He ordered the army into a hollow square, each side 12 cohorts thick, cavalry at the edges, a fortress of men. It protected against flanking, but it was slow, dense, packed, an arrow target the size of a city block. Then the Parthians appeared on the horizon. At first, they did not look like much, just horsemen. Their armor was covered in cloaks and hides. Then the drums started. A deep, hollow thunder rolling across the plain. Not one drum, dozens, hundreds, the sound echoing off nothing, coming from everywhere at once. And then, at some silent signal, the Parthian cataphracts threw off their coverings. Sunlight exploded off polished scale mail. From head to thigh, a wall of gleaming iron, mounted on massive horses. The psychological blow was immediate. Men who had conquered Gaul, Spain, and Greece, hardened veterans, felt their stomachs drop. They had never seen anything like this. Surena had planned to break the Roman line with a single cataphract charge. He rode forward, studied the square, and stopped. That formation was too deep, too steady. A cavalry charge into 12 ranks of locked shields would stall, and a stalled cataphract is a dead cataphract. So he changed the plan. He raised one hand. The cataphracts held position, and around them, flowing like water around a rock, 9,000 horse archers began to move. They did not charge. They circled. Crassus sent his skirmishers forward to drive them off. The light infantry ran out, javelins raised, shouting. The Parthians simply backed their horses, fired, and the Roman skirmishers came stumbling back into the square with arrows buried in their shields, their arms, their legs. Then the real rain began. Arrows fell into the packed Roman ranks. Not one direction, every direction. You have to understand the density. 12 cohorts per side. Thousands of men pressed shoulder to shoulder. An arrow fired into that mass could not miss. The arrows did not just wound. Some punched through shields and into the arm behind them, pinning the shield to the man. Some drove through sandals and nailed feet to the ground. Men died standing up, pinned in place, unable to move, bleeding out while their comrades pressed against them. Crassus ordered the legionaries to charge. The Romans surged forward, shields up, swords ready, and the Parthians simply wheeled their horses and rode away, firing backward the entire time. This was the Parthian shot, the signature maneuver of their horse archers. Loose an arrow over the horse's rump at full gallop, with devastating accuracy. The Romans chased ghosts. Every time they closed, the archers scattered. Every time they stopped, the arrows resumed. Exhaustion set in. The heat was unbearable. Midday, midsummer, armor baking, thirst clawing at throats. Crassus made his next decision. Testudo. The legionaries locked shields, front, sides, and overhead, a moving shell of wood and iron. But the testudo has one fatal weakness. The men inside cannot fight. They are turtles, slow, blind, and defenseless in close combat. Surena saw it immediately. He signaled the cataphracts. The cataphracts hit the testudo at full speed. 1,000 armored horsemen, lances leveled, each one long enough to reach past a shield and into the man behind it. The Roman shell buckled. Men who had been locked together, safe from arrows, suddenly had iron-tipped lances coming through the gaps. The turtle became a trap. No room to dodge, no room to swing a sword. Crassus ordered the men to loosen formation, and the moment they spread out, the archers began shooting again. This was the genius of Surena's system. The trap inside the trap. Tight formation, arrows kill you. Loose formation, cataphracts kill you. Testudo, cataphracts again. Charge, they ride away and shoot backward. There was no correct answer, only different ways to die. Then a soldier grabbed his arm and pointed. Beyond the circling horsemen, beyond the dust, a train of camels had appeared in the Parthian rear, hundreds of them, and the archers were riding back to them, one by one, then in groups, refilling their quivers and returning to the fight. The arrows were not running out. They would never run out. Crassus stared at the camel train. Plutarch says this was the moment he lost heart. He had to break the cycle. He called for his son. Publius Crassus was everything his father was not. Young, brave, beloved by his men. His Gallic cavalry, 1,000 Celtic horsemen, were the finest mounted troops in the Roman army. Binder intensity. The Gauls charged with terrifying speed, screaming Celtic war cries, swords raised, hair flying in the wind. They hit the Parthian archers like a hammer, and the archers did exactly what they always did. They ran. Publius saw them break, saw their backs. He smelled victory. He kept chasing, mile after mile. The dust thickened. The main Roman square shrank behind them until it was invisible, and then the archers stopped running. They wheeled around. The cataphracts closed from both sides. Publius realized too late. The retreat had been a feint, a lure, and he had swallowed it whole. The Gauls fought like demons. They grabbed Parthian lances with their bare hands. They pulled cataphracts off their horses. They died on their feet, screaming defiance. But their weapons were light. Their armor was thin. Against scale mail and lances, courage was not enough. Publius saw the end coming. He refused to leave his men. Plutarch records that Publius Crassus fell on his own sword, and then they did something designed to break what was left of the Roman army. They cut off Publius's head, mounted it on a spear, and rode back toward the main square. Back in the main square, Crassus felt a surge of hope. The pressure had eased. The archers were pulling back. "Publius did it," someone said. "He's driven them off." Then someone in the front rank stopped moving. A single Parthian rider had emerged from the dust. He was carrying something on a lance, bouncing, dark, unrecognizable at first. The rider drew closer, and the men in the front ranks saw what it was. A head. The head of Publius Crassus. The rider circled the square, slowly, deliberately, showing it to every cohort, every century, every man who had marched with this young commander. A sound went through the Roman army, not a battle cry, not a scream, something worse, a collective exhalation, the sound of 40,000 men losing the will to fight at the same moment. Plutarch says Crassus tried to rally the men. He rode along the line, shouting that this was his grief, not theirs, but the men did not hear him, or they heard and did not care. The Parthians resumed their attack. Cataphracts charged from every direction. The square collapsed inward. Romans were crushed against each other. The dead piled up so high that the living could not move without climbing over bodies. And through it all, the arrows kept falling. Cassius Dio describes the end in a passage that still reads like a nightmare. Men blinded by dust, heat so intense that unwounded soldiers collapsed and died, hands nailed to shields, feet pinned to the earth, bodies so packed together that a falling man could not hit the ground. The Parthians did not stop until darkness fell. When the sun finally set, the survivors made a terrible choice. They could wait for morning and die, or they could run and abandon the wounded. They ran. Behind them, 4,000 injured Romans lay in the sand. The Parthians found them at dawn and killed every one. Crassus made it to the walls of Carrhae. Cassius Longinus had also escaped. He would eventually lead the conspiracy that killed Caesar. Surena offered negotiations, a truce. Crassus did not want to go. His men forced him to accept. He rode out to meet the Parthians, and in the scuffle that followed, Plutarch says a Parthian grabbed his horse's reins, a Roman officer struck out, and chaos erupted. Crassus was killed. The legends that grew around his death are probably just that. Cassius Dio claims the Parthians poured molten gold down his throat. Plutarch reports his head was used as a prop in a performance of Euripides' Bacchae. Historians still debate these stories. They are likely later inventions. What is not debated is the butcher's bill. According to Plutarch, 20,000 Romans killed, 10,000 captured, 5 to 10,000 escaped. Parthian losses, minimal. Several legionary eagles, the sacred standards that represented the soul of each legion, were taken. Rome did not recover them for 33 years. Crassus was the third pillar of the first triumvirate. With him gone, the fragile balance between Caesar and Pompey collapsed. Within 4 years, they were at war. The Roman Republic shattered completely. Historians still debate how tight the chain of causation was, but it removed the one man who might have kept the other two apart. And when Crassus died in the sand of Mesopotamia, the Republic died with him, just slowly enough that no one noticed at first. Carrhae is usually told as a story about arrogance, about Crassus, about greed and hubris, and that is true, but it is not the whole truth. The real lesson of Carrhae is simpler and more terrifying. Rome lost because it walked into a battle where the enemy refused to fight the way Rome needed them to fight. The Roman legionary was the most dangerous man on earth, if you stood in front of him, if you stayed long enough for him to reach you, if you let the machine close. Surena never let that happen. He built a weapon system that denied the Romans everything they depended on: distance, mobility, resupply. He turned their own discipline into a liability. The denser they packed, the more of them each arrow hit. And he understood something that military thinkers have been relearning ever since. You do not need to destroy an army to defeat it. You need to make it impossible for them to do what they were built to do. Carrhae was not just a defeat. It was a warning, carved in iron, sand, and 20,000 Roman dead, that the most powerful army in the world can be broken by an enemy it never touches. Rome learned the lesson, barely, and spent the next 700 years staring across the Euphrates at an empire it could never truly conquer. But the story does not end here. Carrhae was the worst Roman defeat in over a century and a half, but it was not the worst ever. For that, you have to go back further, to a hot day in southern Italy, where a single afternoon erased not 20,000 Romans, but tens of thousands more. If Surena used the desert to trap a Roman square, one man used the Romans' own aggression to swallow an entire army whole, turning their greatest strength into the very thing that destroyed them. That man was Hannibal, and that day was Cannae. Watch the Battle of Cannae, how Hannibal erased a Roman army, next, and you will see the textbook that every encirclement since, including the one you just watched, was secretly written from.